Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we're going to be talking about which of last year's conference finalists is the least likely to make it back to this year's conference finals. So, we'll just sort of get started right away. We had four teams make the conference finals last year. In the West, it was Dallas and Minnesota. In the East, we had Boston and Indiana. So, we got to choose one of those four teams as the least likely to make it back to their conference finals. And in this instance, I decided to go with the Pacers. There's an argument to be made for, I think, basically any team other than the Celtics, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to go with Indiana. And the logic here is that of those four teams, I believe that the Pacers were the closest to playing at their ceiling compared to the other teams, right? What exactly does that mean? Well, let's sort of explain things starting with the offense. The Pacers, over the course of both the regular season and the playoffs, were first in points, first in field goals, first in field goal attempts, first in field goal percentage, and first in assists. So the offense was about as strong and efficient as it possibly could be outside of their three-point shooting, which is a point I'll get to later. But they played about as well as you could ever expect an offense to play from a statistical standpoint. And if you take a look at the playoffs, they still needed 6 games to get past Milwaukee. They needed 7 games to beat New York. Both of those teams were missing key players. No Giannis for Milwaukee, no Julius Randle for the Knicks, and Jalen Brunson was dealing with an injury. So you have your offense playing as efficiently as possible, and you did still struggle slightly to get past some of these teams. Meanwhile, looking at the defensive side, the Pacers were not great. 27th in the league in points allowed, 25th in field goals allowed, 30th in field goal percentage against. So they were dead last in terms of field goal percentage. And that's really not even the start. That's just sort of their scoring defense. They were also 28th in the league in terms of their own rebounding and 15th in the league in rebounds against. So they got beat on the boards relatively often as well. They also gave up the most free throw attempts and free throws per game. And they also allowed the most 2-point field goals and 2-point field goal attempts in the league as well. So they're not doing great here. They're not stopping teams from scoring. They're giving up free throws. They're giving up shots inside, and they're not rebounding as well as their opponents. So, well, you put all that together, and what's the picture that forms here? The Pacers still have, I'd say, a wildly efficient and incredibly strong offense and a pretty terrible defense. For the most part, especially in the regular season, their offense was so strong that it made up for a lot of their defensive deficiencies, let's say. But even with all of that being put together, they just narrowly made it through to the Eastern Conference Finals. As I said, 6 games to take down the Bucks, 7 to win against the Knicks. So the question is, how much stronger can a team get on the offensive end, considering it was already the number 1 offense in the league? Right? They were already about as efficient as you could reasonably expect for a team to be. Meanwhile, how can a team that designed itself to be offensively focused, most of the time at the expense of their defense, make a big enough shift on the defensive end to make a difference? Right? Now, the easiest answer to that question sometimes is to bring in help from the outside, to go make a trade, free agent signing, something like that, to balance those scales a little bit. The Pacers really didn't do that. They focused very much on maintaining what they had. They locked down guys to longer contracts, right? Pascal Siakam is the big one, but guys like McConnell, guys like Toppin were also sort of signed long-term here. But other than draft picks, the only player added to this roster was James Wiseman, and I don't want to be too harsh on Wiseman, but I don't think he's going to be a huge difference maker for the Pacers. So all of that contributes to a scenario where I believe the Pacers are the least likely to make it to the conference finals again, but it is worth sort of coming to the defense of the Pacers here and outlining several ways where I could be wrong on that call. First and foremost is that the Pacers offense could improve. I said it was unlikely, but it still could happen, and one of the easiest paths to improving that offense for the Pacers would be the only area where they were not elite on the floor, which is their three-point shooting. They were 11th in the league in three-pointers made, 15th in the league in three-pointers attempted, 9th in terms of three-point percentage in the regular season, which is definitely not bad. Top half of the league by volume, inside the top 10 by efficiency, but it would be much easier to improve those three-point shooting numbers in theory compared to trying to improve upon already being first in overall field goal percentage, right? And if the Pacers could add elite three-point shooting to what was already the number one offense in the league, that would be pretty damn hard for defenses to have any hope of stopping. No. That there is avenue number one. Avenue number two is the fact that Benedict Mathurin's return could make a difference. Mathurin missed the back end of the season and all of the playoffs, but his return could do good things to the team's offensive scheme, right? You never really know here. He went down, I want to say with maybe like a fourth of the season remaining, something like that. So having him back in could change the dynamic for the Pacers offense for the better. And the last point here is pretty simple. The defense for the Pacers could still improve. I was downplaying the possibility of that earlier, and it is incredibly unlikely, but unlikely is not impossible. It is possible that the Pacers commit to improving on the defensive end and manage to do so without sacrificing their offensive strength. Extremely unlikely considering how much of their focus is on the offensive end, but still possible. But I don't mean for this to be a dig on the Pacers. Overall, I'm still pretty high on the Pacers for next season, but if I had to pick one of those four conference finalists to not repeat, to not make it back, it would be Indiana. Especially considering the fact that teams like Milwaukee and New York are going to be healthy. New York and Philadelphia went out and added some new sort of star players to their roster. Mikal Bridges for New York, Paul George for the 76ers. So the level of competition is due to rise in the East in a scenario where the Pacers, I feel, were already playing about as well as they realistically could expect to be. So I think they have the hardest path back. I think they are the least likely to make a return run to their conference finals. But I don't know. That's really just sort of my opinion on the matter. What do you think? In terms of which team is least likely, do you believe someone other than the Pacers are the least likely to make it back? Someone like the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, or honestly even the Celtics? Maybe you believe that they have a little bit of a maybe championship hangover. Specific to the Pacers, do you believe that they can improve what was already the number one offense in the league? Do you believe that their defense can drag itself out of being basically bottom five for the entirety of a season here? But either way, please feel free to let me know what you think. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.